How important is it that you know your cost per nail service? We're going to jump into this topic right now on the Biz Talk. Tracey. That was take 80.
1,000 million.
Dude, I can't talk this morning, which might be a benefit for you, Trace.
No, but you still try to talk. So there's still words.
There's still words, exactly. It's the sound that bothers you. It's just the actual tone of my voice.
Actually just more of the breathing.
Have that in common with my brother. Yes. We both breathe, both annoy Tracey.
Yes, it's a Salo thing, apparently.
That's a win for me. Okay, we've heard this topic come up quite a few times. Cost per nail service.
Yeah.
Cost per nail service. I think we get this question, people even, like, how many services can I get out of a nail liquid, out of a kit, all these types of things, right?
There's so many different things that play into it. It's not just kind of this is your answer.
Correct.
Depends what you're doing.
It depends on what you're doing. And it also is not really possible for us to be 100% accurate because what we're assuming is, if you buy a kit, let's say, I think we average, like, you can get 40 sets out of it.
Average, yeah.
But it also depends on how much product you're picking up. Are you heavy? What type of nails you're working on? Like, so many things.
Nails, long nails,
right.
fills versus full sets, all that.
All that, right. But I know we've had the question from nail professionals of, like, how do I figure out my cost per service? How do I go about doing that? And then Tracey and I were having a very light conversation of, like, how important is it to actually know that? And we're going to talk about both of these things. First of all, let's get into how would somebody calculate this, okay?
Right.
Like some very simple math. This is actually way easier, I think, than people think.
Yeah. And I was explaining to you, I actually have never done it.
I know, which I was like,
but I did it in a different type of way.
Yeah. So
I was safe.
She was, I was like, Tracey Ryerson. I was going to scold her. But as we talked, she was doing probably way more than just cost per service, which we're going to get into that. So let's talk about how somebody figures this out. It's really simple. You're not going to sit there and try to figure out how many scoops of powder am I using, all that. Yeah. Oh my God. You will lose your marbles if you try to go about figuring out that way.
Yeah.
Here's a real kind of simple way to do it, okay? It requires a little bit of time to go by, but it's going to be probably the most accurate way to figure out what your actual cost per service is. It's good to know because then, let's say you're maybe not charging enough, possibly, you're going to know pretty quick what your margins are in a service. So here's what you do. Over the course of a month, what you're going to do is you're going to add up all of your nail expenses, all the expenses that go into a service, okay? Now, I would say if you have an accountant, go to your accountant and get that level of detail that you need to figure this out. I'm just giving you kind of a raw and dirty way to do this. So always talk to your tax professional to really get the answer.
Is that your disclaimer?
So that's my disclaimer, yeah.
It's not part of H&R Block.
No, definitely not. Yeah, this is Habib Block, which I wouldn't put my, tax knowledge for your nail services. Go to H&R Block and go to a professional. Okay, want to say that disclaimer. So here's what you do: take all your nail care expenses, anything that goes into a service, and divide it by the number of services you have. So, for example, if you spend, Tracey, what were you spending on average in nail supplies a month?
About $1,000.
Okay, so you're spending about $1,000. I'm gonna bust my calculator out. So 1,000, and then you were doing how many clients per week? Roughly?
I'm trying to think. It varied from 12 to 16 clients a day.
Let's go on the low end, just for argument's sake.
Okay, 12.
12. And how many days a week?
5.
5?
Not when I quit, but at the meat.
At the meat of your career. So 60, so 240, so $1,000 divided by 200, roughly 240 clients. Your cost per service was about $4.16 per service. Yep. So That's how you want to go about it. Okay. You got to take the number of clients per month. You got to take your spend divided by the number of clients per month. Now, don't just do 1 month, because some months your spend might be higher. Some months it might be lower. You might have carryover products that you're using. You may need not,
There was
right?
months that it was lower, definitely. Yeah,
Sure.
because you bulk up, and and it seems like you run out of everything all at once.
Of course.
It could vary.
So that's why I say you got to do like 6 months. I would prefer you do the latter 6 months, like from to the end of the year, because you're going to spend more. You're going to have more clients. If you want to get really accurate, go 12 months. So over a 12-month period, how much did I spend on my nail supplies that go into the service? And then divide that by the number of services you had in the entire year. That is your cost per service. Now, let's get into why Tracey didn't figure this out. Tracey, you did not know your cost per service until this moment, until I came into your life as your boss, your CEO, and I presented you with this gold of information. You are thankful and grateful, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. Well, that was on the low end, because that was on my low days.
Correct. So that which means that 416 is actually a higher cost than what it actually is, because if you have more clients, it's going to bring that cost down.
Yeah. But the reason I didn't actually go through the homework of actually figuring it all out is because I knew what I was spending monthly.
Yep.
And I knew what I was charging covered it. So I knew I had a really good buffer because I charged enough.
Right.
So I knew that I was making money, and I was making the money that I should be making.
Right.
So what I mean by that is my cost per service wasn't for something, for $4.50, let's say.
Right.
And I was charging $10. That would have been good.
Right. Right.
But my cost per service and what I was charging was, I made good money in
right.
between.
Huge margin that was there.
Yeah.
So,
and I had a great tax guy. So I kept everything. It always amazed me when I did distribution, how many people would walk out without receipts.
Right.
Everything went to my tax guy. Every little thing. Didn't matter if it was a $2 purchase or whatever, because, so he also would keep me into the know. Like, if I was not making money in the year, I would definitely know it.
You're going to know.
Yeah.
So as a starting point, like, you need to know if you're making money, how much money you're making. You've got to know this. You're a nail professional. You're in business now. Okay. I say this every single time. Nail techs are entrepreneurs. You guys are business people. Okay. As a business person, you have to understand what you're spending. You got to understand what you're making. You got to know how much exactly you're making. Like, what is that net profit you're bringing in after your cost of goods, your products, all that stuff. So, Tracey, it sounds like you were doing that like relentlessly, like without question. On a monthly basis, you were like, this many services, I was making this much money, bringing in revenue. Here's my cost of product. Here's my expenses.
Yeah, because even though I was doing something, and at first we know I'm not doing that, but once I built a clientele, especially having a salon on top of it, I needed to know, because is it worth first having a salon?
Right.
Second, because I'm not, I liked having a salon. Because I'm a control freak.
What?
But I'm not going to put all that time in it unless I'm making money.
Right.
And nails, I love what I do for a living, but hey, is it worth better for me to go down to Costco and get a job that provides healthcare and and time off and all that? So of course I had to figure it out, because you need to know what you're making. I don't believe in charging per hour, but you darn well better be figuring out what you are making per hour.
Right. I really love what you're saying here, because this is reality. Like, a lot of people are scared to actually do the calculations because they suspect I may not be making as much as I say or think I make. And then when you actually put pen to paper and do the calculations, that's the reality is going to kick in. And it's like, do you have to have a conversation with your clients and tell them that you're raising your prices? Because if you look and you see that you're not making as much as you'd like to, or maybe you're struggling a little bit, or whatever the situation is, like, it will force you. It's going to force that conversation. Like, you need to have a conversation with your clients. You got to raise your prices, or else you're going to continue to struggle.
This is why I like this subject so much, because I think a lot of techs out there are not going to be honest with themselves. They're not going to include all those crystals that are expensive, all the goodies that they buy all the time.
You're talking about in their charging, right?
They're not going to calculate that, and it's because they love it. You know, I've seen so many, and I used to do it. I go to the supply store and I was like, "Ooh, I want this," and then 2 months later, I haven't used it, but that had to be calculated into my cost. And so these crystals and all these things that are not cheap, and I'm not going to try to say the word because I butcher it every time. The certain expensive crystals.
Swarovski, something.
You went there. You tried it. They're not calculating those into their costs.
Yeah. So
and I think they would be surprised if they did.
Yeah, that's why you have to, that's why over a 12-month period, it's everything that you buy, even if you don't use it. And then what happens is you can do a little inventory at the end of the year, and you can say, okay, I've got all this inventory of products that I'm not using in my nail services and I don't plan to. You either can try to sell it, okay, put it on a platform, eBay or something, try to resell these and recoup some costs back, or you write it off, and that's going to help you tax wise. It's going to help you.
Or you are using them and you're still not including it because you're not charging for them,
right?
Or you're not charging what you should be charging. I think that's the bigger issue. It's not only that they're not using it, but they are using them and they don't want to charge their clients. They feel bad.
That's correct. And you will see, if you calculate your costs and everything that you're buying over the course of a month, you're going to see, okay, I charge this much in services. I spent this much on the charms, the art, all this stuff. Your margin gets smaller, how much you're actually making. So we'll have these conversations of how much can a nail technician make over the course of a year, right? And we've done the math on previous episodes where we've shown from 50 grand to 100 grand, you can make that. That's just revenue. That's just what you're bringing in. It's not taking into account your product costs, expenses, your rent, weekly rent if you're renting a location. It doesn't take so you're not actually taking home that money. You need to know what you're actually taking home.
And that's where, when I start breaking it down for girls who are like, I charged $120. I've talked about this, a mentor did this. I charged $120 for the set. I'm like, amazing. It's gorgeous. How long did it take? 6 hours. Okay, how much product did you spend doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, we broke it down to where she only made less than $10 an hour.
$10 an hour.
Because she was on 50% commission.
That's right.
You can go get a job. That's below minimum wage here.
Right. It is. In California, it is. Correct.
So you have, it's so important, but I think a lot of them would be pretty surprised to figure out that, what would you say actually the margin they should be making? Do you have a number? What, from cost to what they're charging?
Well, the place that I start is, how much do you want to make annually as a nail professional? Do you want to make, what do you have in your head? I'm talking about, okay, maybe in 5 years you want to make $100,000 a year. Okay. But let's say to start, for a good part of your career, you're like, you know what? I want to make $70K a year. That's where I start, Tracy. And then you back out of that.
Got it.
And you go, how many services does that mean I have to do?
Right.
But what's my average cost going to be on a monthly basis? Am I going to spend $500, $600, $700 plus rent? You got to figure all that in and then see where you need to be to make that money. You know what I mean? I would guess, if you're charging, 25, as I'm talking, I'm doing the math in my head real quick, and I'm seeing where struggles can happen so quickly. You know what I mean? If you're not charging for all these added services that you're giving on top of your traditional nail service, all this art services, you're gonna get in trouble really quick. So it's not a real black and white answer of what the margin should be. It's how much do you want to make? And then you back out of that to figure out, what should I be charging? What should what does my margin need to be to get to that point of what I want to make?
Yeah. And I guess, you kind of touched on it. That wouldn't just be your product. right?
No.
It includes everything.
Everything.
Your booth rent.
Oh, yeah.
Laundry detergent for all the towels.
Right.
All that stuff starts getting incorporated into.
Correct.
And gets taken out.
And that's why you should, get with an accountant, somebody that can do this, because what they can do is they can break down for you and say, okay, here's your cost of goods, right? Cost per service. In your case, it's going to be this. And then there's another area, which is your expenses, your rent, your electricity, blah, blah, whatever that is. You know what I mean? That'll go on a different line item. And then you'll actually see how much you're bringing in every single year. You've got to know your costs. And it's not just cost per service. To your point, it's all of your costs. Right. You've got to really know. You got to get real. And sometimes it's a harsh reality, but you need to have visibility. And for me, that puts fire under my butt. Like, I got to hustle now. I got to move. This is harder than I think it is.
Right. That might mean either you're not charging enough, or maybe you need to work on your speed.
Correct.
There's several different things that you maybe you're paying too much for booth rent.
Correct.
All that.
It's going to very quickly expose what the real issues are, and that way you can actually work on those issues. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Talk to us about how you figure out your costs, or are you kind of putting it, aside, and should you start figuring those out? Yes. Let us know. We'd love to have that conversation. Tracey, thank you so much. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Biz Talk.